suppress her with brute force alone. Veil-grinned overdrive attacks closing in. Her speed had reached hundreds of times the speed of sound, and if it had been me before, it would no doubt have been in a bitter fight. However, it is not a problem at all for the person I am now. Too slow. I deflected behind her while stirring up Veil-grinned like that. However, Veil-grinned was no slouch either. Was she already anticipating my actions, and she immediately reacted. Honestly, I think she's really tough to deal with. Sure enough, you can't be too careful with the strongest race. That's right. It's hard to imagine that your speed is faster than mine, so you did it by using space movement? Your spatial movement is remarkable, so natural and without even the slightest distortion of space, but you can figure out how to deal with it by figuring out the principle. I thought Veil-grinned had gone into a rage at my instigation, but she was more calm than I thought. Trying to say that it was really worthy of being Veldora's sister, but it was also the same as what Seal had expected. So the next course of action that Veil-grinned will take is: as long as you interfere with space and fix the entire space, it will not be possible to transfer in the realm of my domination. It's a shame. Surely, that was all she could do. Veil-grinned of course also space domination, she could even interfere with a wide range of spaces centered on herself. In that case, we cannot rely on the space control for the transfer. It's not entirely impossible to force it, but it would be pointless to expose the diversionary outlet. While it could be used to escape, where I would run to would be exposed at first, and the result would be meaningless in the end. With the ability to transfer the system block like this, the next thing you can do is to physically split the victory and defeat, and for Veil-grinned, you can say that you are ready for a must-win situation. And because of that, the next thing she's going to do is: I have to use a real hidden trick on someone like you. You think you can win just by sealing the transfer? In that case, let me teach you that it's not going to work. You're really arrogant. I probably wouldn't hate you if I didn't have to avenge that kid, but that's the end of it. Veil-grinned posed. A shot at the atmosphere, turning itself into a supersonic projectile. However, the rate increases even further. The Scorched Dragon acceleration. The voice comes from the other side of the future. Veil-grinned transformed herself into a crimson meteor, coming at me at a speed near the physical limit of sublight speed. Also, this meteoric bullet of hers can change orbits. Veil-grinned transformed her own flesh into meteoric bombs and was free to change her flight path. No, in fact, this is the form of the Scorched Dragon fighter's accelerated speed. Not just a straight-line attack, but a free-changing trailing attack. In addition, since the energy fluctuations emitted included not only the quality kinetic energy, this move turned into an extreme damage attack. The essence of this move had been perfectly grasped through the analysis of the Scorched Dragon fighter's accelerated excitation. Veil-grinned, though scary, was not as scary as Seal. As a result, on a whim, I allowed the birth of the theosophical nucleus named Seal to become the cause of Veil-grinned's defeat. The King of Gluttony has already unfolded in the Master's full range, just as it was intended. No matter what angle the other party comes from, they can prey on Veil-grinned without any problem. That's a good point. In the usual way of predation, a willful being will resist greatly, not to mention the fact that the being is a true dragon species. No matter how hard Seal tried, it was still impossible to prey on Veil-grinned with the King of Gluttony. However, with a will of her own, Veil-grinned turned her body into a meteor bomb. Because the energy was all distributed on top of the attack, it caused her resistance to drop dramatically. The result is what it is. Veil-grinned was isolated into my infinite imaginary space. How is this possible? Why is this happening? What's going on? The moment she thought she'd finished me off, she suddenly flew into nothing but space, and it must have been difficult for Veil-grinned to grasp the status quo. It would undoubtedly take her a long time to appreciate her defeat, so it's up to me to tell her directly. It's me who wins. You just stay where you are. Me, I lost? Yes. You won't be able to escape from my imaginary space, and you probably won't be able to transfer your energy to your parallel existence. Veilgrin's mana that I devoured was only a little over 50% of the other party's total according to Seal Sensei. Of the remaining 50%, 2 were allocated to the other body beside Rudra, while the other 30% had been consumed earlier and was currently recovering. It seemed that she could only recover 10% a day, so it would take another 3 days for her to recover to less than 50% of her mana. However, since the other body was withheld by me, this part cannot be recovered. Although the situation was somewhat complicated as both other bodies possessed egos, she was undoubtedly weakened now. Ask Veldora for the details. Ask Veldora? What the hell are you talking about? Veilgrind had a puzzled look on her face, but it was quicker to tell her the truth in person than for me to illustrate. Kwa ha 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 ha. Sister, it's me. All is well, it doesn't look like that. Veldora. You didn't disappear? Next, let the siblings talk on their own, hoping she'll calm down when it's time to do so. Just like that, I took complete victory from Veilgrind and managed to capture most of her mana into the void space. With 2 dragon races as opponents, this reckless challenge, with the birth of a reliable partner, Seal, came to an end in a form that could not have been more perfect. Chapter 3. The Intensified Battlefield. The 30,000 soldiers of the Warcraft Legion led by Grand Admiral Gladim were heading towards the sky in a flying airship. Witnessing the gallantry of Veilgrind, morale was high. The enemy beneath the soldier makes an excellent target for their violent impulses. Listen up. With His Majesty the Emperor and Lord Veilgrind on board, we must perform well. There'll be no fighting, people. Come on. The soldiers responded to Gladim's roar with a shocking chant. Gladim was content with that. Inwardly snickered, this was the perfect opportunity. Kukaku. Even if we don't fight for the world, there's no doubt that my time has come. Kalgurio loses, and that Yuki boy is discredited, leaving me as the only great general. As long as I make a military mark here, I'll get what I want. In Gladim's eyes, the Western countries were not enough to mention, and Hinata Sakaguchi seemed to have some ability to do so, but in the end, a draw with a new demon lord was half a bucket of water at best. Gladim is both a confident man and a downright martial artist. The second strongest man in the empire, the Beast Lord Gladim. His origin was, as the rumor has it, Eurasania of the Beast Kingdom. Gladim is actually the half-brother of the Lion King Carrion. The beast that resides in Gladim is the lone white tiger. In the past, it was considered unworthy to be the king of a country because it was too arbitrary. Bunch of bullshit. Not even one of my men is worthy to be in Carrion's service and plot a rebellion. I will definitely make a clean slate for the hate I feel in my heart. For a long time, Gladim had held a grudge. However, he was totally taking good intentions for bad. Eurasania's predecessor was not a great force, but he was able to see which of the 2 brothers was better suited to lead the people, and made a judgment. Hearing the king's decision, Gladim was so impassioned that he succeeded in killing his predecessor by committing a crime and was later banished from the country by Carrion and the 3 beastketeers of the time. The rebellion was nothing more than Gladim's own imagination. The truth was actually the complete opposite. That such a brutal Gladim has survived to this day is also a testament to his own strength. As a heretic of the beast race, as long as one had a decent character, it was estimated that he had long since become a magnificent man that even Carrion could conquer. But this is a past tense assumption. Gladim continued to run and wander. In his wanderings he met 3 loyal minions, now known as the 3 generals. Najim the Vermilion Sparrow. She is a winged mutant that Gladim encountered while wandering in the Harpy Kingdom of Fulbrosia. She was growing 3 pairs of grey wings with purple patches on them, and a loss of reproductive capacity, relative to having outstanding fighting ability. Gladim took her beauty as a companion and began to fall in love. Barago the Blue Dragon. After defeating the equivalent of the Upper Dragon clan's Waterstrike Dragon, Gladim handed it over to Barago to be tamed. He was a martial artist in his prime, and his strength was comparable to the middle rank of a near-guard knight. Gosseline the Black Tortoise. She belonged to a rare magical creature race, a maiden who served as an envoy to the rock goblins, and was also a witch of a foreign race, specializing in a variety of magical spells. After Glardim beat down the rock goblin, Gosseline began to follow him. The three generals have their own stories, but one thing they all have in common is that they are all strong men. Najim is a demon lord level, and it's not surprising for her to awaken at any time. The magical creatures led by Barago and Gosseline were both of the Calamity class, and were also prominent among the Warcraft Legion. Glardim's defection to the Empire 300 years ago was already after the sealing of Veldora. He survived the Celestial Demon Wars and led violent groups in a rampage through Imperial territory. He was defeated by a crusading army sent by the Empire, and later agreed to obey the Emperor Rudra to be pardoned. Glardim's ambition was to overthrow the Marshal and become a hand of the Empire, then wait for the opportunity to kill Rudra and take the position of Emperor himself. Glardim had no such lofty thoughts as gratitude for him, only condescending because his opponent was strong, ready to betray at any moment. To conquer the world through the power of empire. One day, he will become an emperor. It is the ignorance of the identity of the Marshal that gave rise to such scheming illusions. Rudra had long since seen through Glardim's nature and had temporarily reused him because of his strength, letting him live one more day as long as he remained on command, that was all. It is because of the coincidence of their intentions that a delicate balance of mutual exploitation has been achieved. And now, the balance has collapsed. I'm surprised the Marshal is Veilgrind the Scorched Dragon. That kind of power is impossible to defeat. The power to symbolize fear is beyond my reach. As the saying goes, a different subdivision. It was a lucky fluke to understand this before planning to kill the Emperor. The atheistic Glardim thanked the gods. Glardim reformulated his intentions. Although it was calculated that one day Veilgrind would have to be defeated, and that would require careful preparation. Having understood this, his whole mind is now on achieving success. And it's just the way I want it. Through wild instinct, Glardim realized that he was not far from awakening, still one step closer to gaining great power, convinced by intuition. Also, Najim, with whom he often fought together with, was the same. Although the conditions of the awakening are not clear, the time is coming. This is one of the reasons why Glardim is eager for the battlefield. Now, a swarm of baiting food had gathered in front of Glardim's eyes. Ecstatic and dumbfounded at the situation at hand, Glardim couldn't help but lick his tongue. Touring the battlefield, there are quite a few enemies that give the impression of being powerful. The more these strong men were defeated, the more powerful Glardim and the others' battle would become. Kukuku, the merry banquet has begun. As Glardim expected, no, the battlefield was tragically beyond his expectations. The three generals under Glardim, obeying their master's purpose, began to act. They scanned the battlefield, searching for the strong. Hey, that's King Garzel. And my reputation will go up when I take that guy down. What, are you trying to sneak away? It would upset him not to leave the main course to Lord Glardim. King Garzel's bravery was well known, and if he were to be defeated, others would have to be defeated. As a martial artist, it was difficult for Barago to suppress his excitement. And Najim dissuaded him. Knowing that King Garzel was Glardim's target, Najim gave advice to Barago and persuaded him to make concessions. And as soon as Garzel is defeated, Lord Glardim's power will no doubt grow. This excellent condition, how could one miss it? That's Najim's heart. And Barago also believes that Master Glardim takes precedence over himself. Besides, Garzel was already wounded, and as a martial artist who took advantage of people's danger, one could not rule out the possibility that someone would say something about it. In this way, it is more appropriate to defeat the appropriate enemy. I know. I would also like to dedicate this main course, King Garzel, to Lord Glardim to make his master stronger. For her part, Gosseline smiled and hitched up to Barago. Kahaye.
Don't worry, There are a lot of other powerful people, although they lack a bit of flavor, but it's okay to have a full stomach.
As she said, there were countless strong men on the battlefield. Indeed, with a nonchalant nod, Barago nodded. Najim agreed with a smile. Woo-hoo-hoo. As Lord Gladim says, the time for awakening is near. The first one to become a demon lord will be me, Najim the Sparrow. Najim-san, I think you're the one who's trying to run away. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. King Gazelle will give Lord Gladim, and his concubines will indulge themselves as they please. A single word from Najim spoke the mind of all. Then I'll go and take the weak lizard. That annoying dragon race is still alive and well on the battlefield, and that lizard seems to be the leader, so to thwart the enemy's war effort, the lizard should be crushed first. Then I'll use that arrogant woman as a match. I have to show her how much she's worth by stepping into my airspace without my consent. Kahir-hai. Then my servant will destroy that magic doll and taste the power of the rock goblin. In order to avoid snatching prey, each person states his or her goal, but what they think is just naive. As envisioned by the three generals, Gladim's target was Gazelle. As a matter of course, it was common sense to judge whether or not to start with the strong one first based on the situation, but it was also common sense to deal with the weak and strong one first. Gazelle lost the fight to Kondo, unable to move, and now is the perfect time to do so. You must be King Gazelle. My name is Gladim, and I am the leader of the Empire's strongest legion of warcraft, General Gladim. Your head is mine. Whatever his vile or not, it's purely and nakedly vile nature. However, it was justified behavior for Gladim. One can do whatever it takes to get to the end, that's Gladim's creed. So Gladim swooped down on King Gazelle, but someone stood in his way. Gable, of the dragon people, who glowed with purple electric light and possessed red-purple scales, was regarded as the immortal dragon king. Ho ho ho. My resurrection. Don't try to be rude to King Gazelle. Geez, you want to get in my way, hateful lizard. Watching his prey in sight but getting in the way, Gladim's mood changed for the worse. However, he soon couldn't care less about his mood and fell into a panic. Just as he cast his gaze around, wanting to complain about what the three generals were really up to, a startling scene came into view. Barago, the blue dragon, who was originally Gable's opponent, was struck down by the resurrected Gable. Gosseline, who was happily heading towards the floor guardian Colossus statue, was crying because her rock goblin had been defeated. The only one left is Vermilion Sparrow Najim, who is fighting an evenly matched battle with her perceived enemy Soka. Even when the soldiers went up to challenge Gable in order to protect Gladim, the gap in strength was glaringly obvious. There was no way around it, so Gladim had to take it on himself. Just as he was about to do so, Samuel would more or less send an urgent contact via magic talk. No, 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 no. Reporting back on our side, Demon Lord Raimoru made an amazing move. For His Majesty's protection, we ask for urgent support. Although Gladim wanted to scold him for not caring so much, he managed to swallow the words with patience. Then ask what's going on across the room. The sky depicts a great, unbelievably large, demon summoning door. So what? So to speak, hundreds of upper-level demons above the greater demon level have been summoned. And we've already suffered. The monoliths are fighting above A level and are organized. It was also enough to perceive how serious the matter was from Samuel's exuberant voice, but Gladim was not at ease with this debriefing. It seems that Raimoru the Demon Lord has done something wrong, but there is Vielgrind on the Imperial side. How could one lose to a monster Demon Lord? It was hard to believe the threat was that serious. For a threat, Gladim would rather focus his war effort on the guy in front of him. This side is busy, too. Let's ask them to take care of their own business. Gladim vented his displeasure in one breath, then tried to hang up the communication. However, Samuel called out to him in an anxious voice. But now there is a demon legion that is stronger than the Imperial army soldiers, and this is a disaster of a great scale. What are you talking about? There's not only Lord Veelgrind, but the guards are also on standby. Although there was only one commander's airship, it was carrying the Empire's highest battle force. Gladim thought to himself, there's no need to look for me when it's too late, they can handle anything by themselves. It's also normal to think that at this point, no one can blame Gladim. But this time, the opponent was too strong. Indeed, there were Lieutenant Kondo and all of the near guards on this side. However, the subordinates of the Demon Lord's army alone have no time for others. You mean subordinates? Shouldn't it? A thought flashed through Gladim's mind. The identity of the immediate opponent is that of a subordinate named Gable, which is a rough guess. Although his strength was stronger than imagined, a momentary panic struck him, but he calmly turned back to think about it and wrote the names of other subordinates on the report: Benimaru, Shion, Diablo, Gogta. Among the men under Demon Lord Raimuru, who were known as the Four Heavenly Kings, there was no such name as Gable. If that was the case, the Four Heavenly Kings' strength was still above Gable's. Not only that. Unbelievable as it is, Demon Lord Raimuru has committed a taboo beyond our wildest dreams. It's hard to understand what tactics were used to make him evolve the demons. You hear me? Hundreds of demons have been strengthened to the strength of a superior demon general. It is, indeed, a very unrealistic thing to do. Despite Gladim's reluctance to believe it, Samuel was not the kind of man to joke around with. It's better to be a decent, well-behaved person. Then what he said was the truth, and could only be understood to mean that a few hundred calamity-level monsters were liberated. So it seems. Samuel, I understand your concern. Then I'll leave the reinforcements to you. Like a sigh of relief, Samuel hung up the call. Gladim fell into thought. Despite the quantitative advantage, quality over that would be meaningless. That was the rule of the battlefield, and that's why Gladim worked up his men. If it's just the demons, there might be something to be done. But now that 2 of the 3 generals are down, it's dangerous to remain optimistic. At the very least, Gladim's men had to sit on their hands. Nonsense. Thinking that you are just a demon lord and underestimating the other party, you misjudged the situation. I and the higher echelons of the Empire will probably survive, but the soldiers at the bottom will probably be killed. In that case, simply. By now, it was too late to regret. Next, just do what's within his power. Gladim, on the other hand, retains the taboo killer. The Warcraft Legion is composed of elite personnel that Gladim has carefully selected and honed. This legion was clearly talking about an active heroic bloodline handed down from ancient times, a group of innately strong men, but that was not the case. The actual is a group of heroes artificially created by combining magic and otherworldly knowledge. Also, the magical beasts they tamed had secrets on them. Not only do they screen out the A grade and above, but they are also given the ability to specialize in combat by rewriting the intelligence of polymeric biomass. The artificial life form that was created by cultivating and increasing the number of magic beasts and combining various characteristics is a weapon called an artificial synthetic beast. And it was Gladim, who was also a beastman, who was in charge of the study. By analyzing the principle of self-mutation, it is used to strengthen the subordinates. In this world, there is no research that is prohibited for ethical, religious, etc. reasons. It is because of this that results have been achieved at an alarming rate. Gladim uses slaves for human experimentation, creating the strongest legion he could ever hope for. A-ranked heroes and their partners, synthetic beasts, gain unparalleled power when fused with adult demon beast. However, the true value of the man-made synthetic beast had yet to be realized. The unity of opposites, that's the extreme that Gladim seeks. The special caste and ability demon-beast fusion has been developed for this purpose. A special medication as a secret among secrets is also the most important item among military secrets, and only 3 generals, besides Grand Admiral Gladim, are aware of it. The effect is also naturally a fusion of mastery, warcraft, and soldiers. The demon-beast fusion is based on the bestialization of the beastman race, not from their own bodies, but from the synthetic beasts of their partners. By realizing the true meaning of human-monster unity, you can gain huge power and create a super warrior that can't be compared to the one who uses magic beasts. However, the forbidden potion is the granting of magical beast power to humans, and is accompanied by great danger. Once the drug is injected, it not only forces the ability to start, but also cannot be discharged on its own, and must be removed from the body at a hospital affiliated with the institute, and there's a serious side effect that can't be ignored. Instead, this side effect is the problem. The safety of this drug is not guaranteed. According to current research, the mortality rate is as high as 40%. If the match fails, there's also a 20% chance that you won't be able to go back from being a demon beast to a human, and once you do, you won't be able to go on as a human for the rest of your life. And even more brutal than that is the berserk demon beasts. There will be people who are fully demonized and berserk, and there will be people who remain in human form and lose consciousness and no longer obey orders. Once it becomes that way, there is no more resuscitation, only punishment. The probability of going berserk is 30%. More cruel than death, this is a drug that cannot be easily tried. The above is an example of complete failure. So that adds up to a 90% chance of failure. Taking the medicine was tantamount to ordering the ministry to die, and even the self-serving Gladim would hesitate to let his own men try it. Gladim wanted to improve the quality of the medicine and increase the success rate before giving it to the ministry. But the current situation no longer compelled him to think so. Emperor Rudra is a more aloof man than Gladim. In the emperor's view, the existence value of the weak is nothing more than bait for the strong. Then, it is only compassionate to let the ministry take the medicine now. Also, the berserk demon beasts can be used as bait, and even if they don't turn back into humans, they still have some value as battle strength. The only thing that really matters is the 40% of the soldiers who died on the spot. It's not yet possible to conclude, but there's no doubt that the battle will be even stronger than it is now. Then, the drop is right. There are many unknowns as to the efficacy of the medicine, and perhaps there will be some physical abnormalities, but 10% of the soldiers do get stronger. On the battlefield, quality is more important than quantity. In the eyes of those who know this common sense, to be able to strengthen 10% of the soldiers is really a charming allure. Indeed, the odds of complete success are unclear. The number of attempts is too small and side effects may occur due to body condition. Although it was impossible to completely discard the possibility, survivors who had successfully absorbed the magic beast's power would also appear among them. As a result, less than 1% of the 10% success rate is complete success, less than 1% of those who are fully adapted. These people were hailed as the Chimera Knights. These success stories are exactly that. Hey, you guys, listen up. I was just contacted by Samuel and it looks like it's not time to play. Get up and kill them. Gladim exclaimed extremely earnestly. Puzzlement rose to Gable's expression as he realized the words were not addressed to himself. However, he immediately tensed his nerves and hurriedly dodged from the spot. A moment later, a silver light penetrated where it had just been. Humph, can you avoid this light? I thought it was already a perfect sneak attack, but it was really an opponent that couldn't be taken lightly. You say not to be taken lightly? That is my line. Why are you safe when you've got a big hole in your chest? Confronting Gable, who had dodged some distance, was Barago, the blue dragon, who should have died. The large hole in his chest was still open, not to mention the hyper-regeneration, not even the self-regeneration. Originally a fatal injury that regular people had long since died, this was a world full of monsters, and no matter what happened, there was nothing strange about it. Gable understood this as well, and it was Barago who walked away only after knocking the opponent out, confirming that his life response was gone, abnormally. Kukaku. I am safe and sound because of the tremendous power granted to me by Lord Gladim. I'll show you my true form. As if in response to Barago's call, the water-battering dragon flew. No. That just looks like a water-battering ram. It was actually an artificial synthetic beast that mimicked the water-strike dragon. Barago was precisely one of the Chimera Knights who had awakened true power.
The main body and partner, as long as one of them is okay, cannot be killed.
It was also one of the hidden powers of the Chimera Knight. And now, by unleashing the special cast and power of demon-beast fusion, the fatal injury suffered was recovered in an instant. In addition, Barago and the water-strike dragon fused together to form a single body. Barago's appearance was the same as the original, but with dragon scales growing out of his body. The nature of the demon chi was different from before, and no doubt the strength had increased drastically. Gable glanced at Gladim with heart, once again seeing Barago as a rival. Then, intending to focus on the matchup with Barago, but Gladim wasn't naive enough to let the two go at it alone either. This lizard is stronger than I thought, and together we can kill him. Yes, sir. Then I'll be the front man and ask Lord Gladim to play gorilla. All right. I'm here to help you. Don't be careless. Neither honor nor chivalry mattered to Gladim. It is precisely because of this recognition of Gable's strength that the opponent is to be eliminated without any hesitation. Look, this is ridiculous. Even if they go together, they can't beat me. Gable made a bold statement and cheered himself on. What followed was an unfavorable fight. The other one of the three generals is also an opponent not to be cared for. Just as Barago was safe, the Rock Goblin, the originally defeated ambassador, was equally fine. The Ghidorah side was in sync with the Floor Guardian Colossus statue while monitoring the battlefield. Thus, hearing what Gladim had said felt out of place. Say yes, get up? This is, and to whom it is said. As Ghidorah thought so, he sensed the resurrection of Barago. Panicking, he intended to alert Gable, but felt a vicious chill first and turned back. Standing there was a maiden who had changed her appearance. No, nor is it known whether it should be called a maiden. Despite the girlish gesture, her skin is a stark metallic black. Her body was not flesh but rock, more precisely, turned into a block of magic steel. Like a polished mirror, it was obvious at a glance that the look was not human. Are you assimilated with a rock goblin? Hi, yes, His Excellency the Wise Ghidorah. You seem to be familiar with otherworldly knowledge as well, but my research is unique. Indeed. That's interesting. Right. I'll tell you all about the results, be sure to let me hear your high opinion. The young girl Black Tortoise Gosseline stirred up Ghidorah and a wicked smile appeared on her face. Then took a step forward. Ghidorah would prefer not to toss his old bones again. Originally, he thought he had defeated the Rock Goblin with brute force, but that seemed to be just acting. Ghidorah figured it out and re-estimated Gosseline's strength. That's really enough. It's called genetic engineering? The nature of the original magical creatures alone had numerous mysteries, and one would think that there wasn't much meaning in this magical world, quite the opposite. It's great to be able to produce such results with the goal of assimilating magical creatures. The old, cunning Ghidorah also felt admiration for her. There are a lot of different kinds of magic, and there are some varieties of them that have no genes. There is simply not enough time to explain so many examples, and it is always thought that it is very difficult to produce results. Because of this, research in genetic engineering has been carried out only in the medical field in the Empire. However, it seemed that there was secret research going on within the Warcraft Legion. Presumably, the research is being conducted on inhumane things that cannot be disclosed to the public. Ghidorah was no great benefactor and could understand the sentiment of prioritizing intellectual curiosity over everything. He did not want to complain about such studies, but regretted that he had not been able to take part in them, and therefore did not know how far they had been reinforced. Judging from the appearance, Gosseline's strength was higher than that of Demon Lord Clayman, and seemed to be weaker than Sage Saray, but it contained an amount of mana very close to Saray's. Judging from the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth, It was even higher than the pre-awakened Zijin, and although the amount of mana was not equal to the strength, she was undoubtedly a dangerous opponent. The Dragon Kings are far behind you, too. Looks like I'm going to have to show some real talent. It's an honor to be complimented by Jidora-sensei. Let's have a taste of this power. Gosselin started to move. The forward thrust of this surge is heavier than a 10-ton truck hitting at 300 km per hour. The Floor Guardian Colossus statue, which was more than 3 meters in height and weighed more than 30 tons in total, would also be easily knocked away. Jidora called out as she unhurriedly adjusted her stance. Purple Light Thunder. Technique, as its name implies, let loose a purple thunderbolt. It was a soldier's suit mounted on the Floor Guardian Colossus statue, capable of emitting over 1,000,000 volts of electricity. Incidentally, it's not that the higher the voltage, the more powerful the weapon, it's just that it's cool. There's no point in scaring people except for their appearance, but it's appropriate for scaring adventurers. Surprisingly, Gosselin was also stunned. What? What? Isn't it magic? Can you manipulate a lightning strike without unleashing your magic? Compared to its prowess, Gosselin froze even more out of surprise. Well, it's a secret weapon, after all. It was Lord Rimuru who trusted me and entrusted me with this. Therefore, defeat must not be allowed. Jidora also matched up in a flourish. By parsing Gosselin's forward stroke, it was understood that she had replaced her body structure with a magic steel component. Although it was only speculation, it should be the special ability of the rock goblin. Clearly a substance heavier than steel, Gosselin's movements were smooth. Moreover, with the power of a rival saint in her body, he could only admit that this transformation was a foul. However, Jidora possessed the Floor Guardian Colossus statue. Take this, the demon's destruction cannon, the ultimate magic weapon. At this point, the strongest armor is unleashed, and the firearm's control device is directly connected to Jidora's consciousness, allowing the armor to be unleashed without time difference, and the demon's destruction cannon was the strongest of the weapons. The name of the move is also very much in the style of Jidora, a tribute to the demon race. And judging by its performance, it can be said that it is a magic essence harvest cannon. This weapon not only uses the mana filled in the statue of the Floor Guardian, but also harnesses the mana in the atmosphere and releases it together, which is a perfect way to describe this weapon. The Floor Guardian Colossus opened its chest, and through that transparent membrane, Jidora's figure could be seen. From the center of the two palms, a ray of light was released, and with this ray of light as the center, a ray of destruction that coalesced the demon element was generated. Geez. You're the leader of the original Magic Legion, Gosselin said. It seemed that he did not choose to dodge, but rather to be on the defensive, and his expression was not able to remain calm. Flush it out. Magic Steel Ultra Fine Vibration Wave. A tiny vibration was emitted from Gosselin's body surface, a vibration that was unique to Magic Steel. The frequency of the magic steel is unique in its ability to create fluctuations that pop off the magic element. Being able to render magic ineffective was also this principle, and by assimilating with the rock goblins, Gosselin was able to manipulate this trait freely. The contraction of magicules and the diffusion of magicules. The opposite properties collide with each other. The winner is Gosselin. What? Kahirhai survived. It's a victory for my servant. Gosselin cheered loudly. Jidora is a wizard, naturally, and his means of attack are also dependent on magic. Relatively speaking, Gosselin's body was magic steel and had an absolute advantage in the face of magic. Both sides are familiar with this. That's why Jidora had used the most powerful weapon. If that didn't work either, it could be argued that Jidora no longer had the means to be able to defeat Gosselin. I've got a headache. I didn't expect to be able to defend against this. Jidora is also considered a strong man. When facing an opponent with a larger amount of mana than yourself, you can also subdue them with your own strength. Even with a saint like Sarai as his opponent, he overwhelmed his opponent by virtue of the skill gap. However, there is always nothing one can do about an enemy who is not as good as oneself. That is, facing an enemy whose attacks don't work. If you can't beat the enemy, you can't win even without losing. Ghidorah understood that the fight was against him. He was thinking about what to do. Now is the critical time. This old man is no decent person, nor can it be said that Lord Rimuru has fully trusted me. If I do not demonstrate my own awareness here, he will not take me as one of his true companions no matter what the time comes. Ghidorah was impressed by the sheer size of Rimuru's apparatus. Although Rimuru spoke suspiciously of Ghidorah, who had defected from the Empire, he had accepted him and recognized his ability to take on great responsibilities. And, the land of the monsters is beautifully landscaped. Research facilities superior to those of the Empire were also prepared. His best friend Adalman is also here. Adalman, who is now of the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth, is also the pride of Ghidorah. Moreover, the study of magic could be said to be this old man's interest. As long as those few high men were present, it should lead me to pry into the abyss. Even in response to that lord's expectations, it will come in handy here. Ghidorah, wishful thinking of the monsters as masters of his own magic, recalled the masters and made good on his awareness. However, his memories are overly embellished. A demon had rejected Ghidorah without putting his eyes on him. A demon had tricked Ghidorah into almost using him as a test subject, and a demon had somehow drunkenly invited Ghidorah to practice swordplay instead of magic, but these were all aptly misunderstood by Ghidorah. However, there was another demon that liked Ghidorah over the praise of Rimuru's magic, and that demon had praised him for it, so it wasn't as if Ghidorah's memory was wrong. The demon, Diablo, and Ghidorah made a pact. If Ghidorah can find a way to gain Diablo's approval, he'll take Ghidorah in as his own dependent. So Ghidorah cannot die here. Rimuru had also ordered that there be no messing around. But, a thought flashed through Ghidorah. I haven't lost yet. The battle's just begun, little girl. Ki hi 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 hi. Yeah, that's good. Let your flesh remember the power of your servant. Ghidorah yelled, and Gosseline responded. The two then went head to head again. Gosseline, who was clearly less than half the height of the Floor Guardian Colossus statue, did not fall behind in her efforts. This is not normal. The weight-dominant Floor Guardian statue was suppressed. Moreover, it was not unusual for Gosseline to have countless tentacles growing swiftly on her back. The tip of the tentacle was sharply polished and smooth, plunging into the Floor Guardian statue. Look. Aha. More. Blood, give me more blood. Gosseline felt like she was burning out. These tentacles are constructed of magic steel, and they sharpen iron by creating high-frequency fluctuations through subtle vibrations. This move can also be applied to cut through matter and can be called a high-frequency thousand-handed chunk, or a high-frequency thousand-handed chop. The hands of the Floor Guardian Colossus statue were instantly chopped away by the high-frequency thousand-hand chop. You. The important body that Lord Rimuru has entrusted to me. In front of my servant, it's a piece of shit. You're too old to rely on such toys. I'm sick of this. Ghidorah shouted defiantly, but also only hard of mouth. In actuality, Ghidorah's body was penetrated by tentacles that opened several holes. Covered in blood, it was fortunate to be in the body and not be seen in this state by Gosseline, allowing him to maintain a tough attitude. That's tough. You don't need to be ashamed of the fact that the situation is irreversible. Even the legendary wizard could not overcome the tide of the times. I haven't lost yet. What an ugly struggle. Gosseline reached out two tentacles that turned into sharp blades, then cut off the feet of the Floor Guardian statue. In this way, the Floor Guardian Colossus statue lost its limbs. Take an oath to obey your servant. You'll be spared, won't you? It would be a pity if Ghidorah's knowledge were lost. With that in mind, Gosseline offered an invitation. But Ghidorah wouldn't nod yes to that either. Well, I'm basically putting myself first. Therefore, only if you don't betray your love of magic, will the ghosts follow you who despise it. Chidora's soul explodes. When loved ones are despised, human anger pours out of the heart. Chidora's stamina and perseverance are now on fire. And that anger made him determined to unleash forbidden magic. Use one's own life force as fuel for fierce-burning self-exploding magic, elemental magic, life sublimation. After all, I have a mystical means, reincarnation. I'm going to say goodbye to this world for now, and definitely peek into the abyss of magic next time. This is a man named Chidora who would rather be victorious than defeated. Resist? Then you're useless. Go to hell. You're going to be buried with me. Gosseline's tentacles penetrated the chest of the body where Chidora was, and at that moment, a dazzling light burst from the floor guardian Colossus statue. The light that burns everything to the ground is the elemental magic that Chidora unleashed, the flame of life sublimation. What the? That's what you're looking for? Before Gosseline could say a word, she was engulfed by the flames of life and disappeared. After that, a flower-like flame bloomed on the ground. Gable got caught up in a bit of an unfavorable fight. Gladim was strong, but even more tricky was Barago, who had awakened the power of a Chimera Knight. This power was similar to that of the two just now, and it could not be underestimated to the current Gable. Looking at the amount of mana alone, Gable was higher. Even counting spear skills, it was Gable who had the upper hand. It's just that the gap isn't that big when you look at the combined strengths. Gable could have beaten his opponent as long as he didn't fall short, but the opponent was too. Gladim, who fought guerrilla warfare, harassed on the sidelines, and Gable had difficulty in breaking Barago. And Gable had another concern. That Soka who fought with Gladim's men. One of the three generals, Najin the Vermilion Sparrow, seems to be a strong woman who can match a demon lord, and is of the same race as the demon lord Frey, and Gable speculates that her strength is similar to Frey's. Therefore, he felt that Soka couldn't win. Although Soka's strength had grown tremendously with Gable's evolution, and he was now also a powerful person who could be called a superior monster, he was still only at the rank of an adjutant of a demon lord. His strength wasn't enough to fight the demon lord directly, and victory could be said to be desperate. Soka is still alive because the sadistic Najim is simply enjoying playing with Soka. Gable noticed this too, anxious to get over to the rescue. However, Gladim and Barago are also strong enemies. Sorry about that, sister. Just hold on, Gable prayed while he did so, then focused on his enemy. And then, bad news came again. A flash of light came from the ground, and Chidora-sensei was in the center of that flash. Sir Chidora. Gable's thought communication is not working. This means that. Even more troubling was the sight of a small figure standing up. Although his body was scaly and wounded, Gosseline, one of the three generals, did not die. Unable to conceal the shake, Gable shot Barago as he bided his time. Hey, 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 hey. Ho 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 ho. Of course, you're no match for me. Gable talks tough, but doesn't really have the strength. The situation was unfavorable, and the words retreat came to Gable's mind. But at this point, Gable also rushed to the scene with reinforcements he hadn't expected. Well, that looks bad. I'm here to help you. It was unexpected, but it came from a figure familiar to Gable. That's, Frank. I can't help it. I pestered Milim to help me move her here. One more person. The beautiful queen, the dominator of the sky. Sir Carrion, Lady Frey, why are you here? Gable asked in surprise, and Carrion replied cheerfully. We'll talk about this later. Let's get these guys out of here. Frey agreed with Carrion's words and nodded softly. Now that an alliance has been formed, it's only natural to send reinforcements. We will also fight, under the command of Lord Benimaru. The Beast King warrior regiment of Carrion, though less than 100 in number, rode at once. The same is true of the Frey's close guard, the heavenly soaring people. Although there are not many warrior-type winged people, their strength is guaranteed. There was no more reliable reinforcements, if not more numerous, than they were. Then please. Gable stopped worrying and understood the situation. So he wanted to consult Benimaru, sent a communication, and Benimaru immediately replied, "The situation on your side has been observed through the Argos. Don't be careless, Gladim is pondering something, watch out for the soldiers at the bottom." Benimaru's instructions were straightforward and didn't specify who to fight who, only conveyed the main points. Instead, however, Gable was happy to feel trusted and relied upon. "Then I'll let Sir Carrion deal with the enemy's general." Hey, you're a good man. That guy was a disgrace to the Beastman race, and I originally thought that he had stormed the wilderness long ago, not expecting him to be alive. Let me finish him off myself. That's what Carrion was going to do at first. The Gable accepted the instructions with gusto. "So, my opponent is the Harpy, right?" "If you want to say so, Frey is also a Harpy," although Gable thought so in his heart. He wasn't so stupid that he wasn't sure what the consequences would be if he said it. He was also worried about his sister Soka, and Frey's proposal was exactly what he wanted. "Can you please?" Gable asked solemnly. "Yes. So, I'm over it." Frey glanced at the two wings. "It's all yours after that. Good luck, Lady Frey." Frey nodded and flew over. Naturally, Frey's target is Najim the Vermilion Sparrow. Najim, who was playing with Soka, also sensed that someone had suddenly broken in. "Frey. The real queen, is me. Today, let me forget all the regrets I have accumulated for years." Unbeknownst to Frey herself, Najim was her own twin sister. Najim is a mutated species born with great power, but unfortunately had no reproductive capacity. For the feminine race with wings, it is impossible to identify with a queen who cannot bear children. Najim herself, through no fault of her own, could not qualify to become queen. Because of this, the then queen judged that she was likely to be the bane of the future and ordered Najim's exile. Gladim picks up Najim, who is wandering aimlessly, and unknowingly, Najim has built up anger and hatred for her fellow people in her heart, and now Frey, the symbol of her fellow people, is at hand. Joy and loathing surged through her heart, and with this incredible emotion, Najim rushed forward to meet Frey's unfurled wings. Carrion looked over at the two of them, full of concern. "Well, let's start here too." Gladim, on the other hand, was gritting his teeth with hate. "Don't underestimate people, you son of a bitch." It seems that Frey is also related to her rival. That's karma. If we didn't come as reinforcements, we wouldn't have had such an opportunity. Opportunity? Yeah. I'll kill you to prove that I am the strongest of the beastmen. Bullshit, that's my line. Carrion and Gladim, both of whom have similar personalities and intonations. He has a fierce temperament and cannot afford two tigers in one mountain. As Carrion says, it's a battle of karma. Take it. Come on. I'll show you what a gap is. Carrion unleashed his unique skill 100 beasts and transformed into a true Lion King. Fully armed at the outset, make the most of it. Relative Gladim also made use of the White Tiger power that hadn't been used in the battle with Gable. The lone White Tiger, dressed in military uniform, fought against the King of the 100 Beasts. On the battlefield, two fronts were formed. Powerful forces clash with each other, creating a force field. Gable, on the other hand, watched the battle. Those who came as reinforcements to help, acted on Benimaru's instructions. It's nothing. Similarly, the Kurenai and the Flying Dragons are under the command of Dorf, commander of the Order of the Sky. Benimaru gave appropriate instructions to each of the key locations, but the specific instructions were left to the people on the ground to execute. Gable also agreed with Benimaru's approach. As he himself could imagine, Benimaru was also fighting the enemy's subordinate. Benimaru is doing it right. Despite the high combat power of the Imperial Warcraft Legion alone, it was not praiseworthy in terms of group actions. Thus, The numerically disadvantaged Union Army maintained the line through clever cooperation. Still, there is no denying the disadvantage. The reinforcements came at just the right time, and the Union Army was ready to raise the wolf smoke of the counterattack. Well, that seems to be going well. Sokka has recovered well. I have to work harder. It's easy to look around when my opponent is looking around. As Gable cast his eyes to the battlefield, sharp gunfire met him head-on. The opponent is Barago. Gladim and Carrion were far away, but the battle between this side and Barago continued. Ho 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 ho. I'm the commander-in-chief, I can't just focus on you. I'm really underestimated. You're the ones who despise people, aren't you? If that man named Gladim had shown his true talent in the first place, I might not have been able to survive. Ha! How could a great beast lord get real with a little man like you? Hearing this, Gable shook his head helplessly. It's called taking things lightly. As the saying goes, when a lion beats a rabbit, he also uses all his strength. In this world of the weak and the strong, no matter what kind of opponent you face, it's only etiquette to do your best. Gable replied dutifully. In fact, Gable couldn't help but think of his companion as he said this. So much for people who don't do their best in the face of the enemy, accidentally, remembering this. One of the most even is Diablo. Gable occasionally provokes mock battles, but it feels like Diablo has knocked himself out with a rather underrated approach. That demon is an exception. In the end, if I had shown my true ability, the battle would have been over in an instant, so I can't complain. Although we are on the same page, there is a world of difference in strength between Diablo and me. It hurts, but that's the reality. With Raimaru's approval, he was awarded the highest honor, as one of the 12 patrons. Gable is proud of this, but at the same time more aware of his own standards. He became stronger through awakening and perceived how powerful Diablo is. Even the trio of demonesses who didn't evolve at the celebration feast were far superior to Gable. In this way, Diablo, who was even better than them and had successfully evolved, had become a monster beyond Gable's imagination. You can't win a fight. One can only admit that this is not an option, but if one gives up on it, it's all over. It doesn't matter if you can't win now as long as you don't give up and stick to chasing Diablo's footsteps. Gable thought this way, often with an upward spirit. It was because of this that Gable knew what was truly powerful. Though it was a concept imagined out of thin air, the strong were by no means the unassuming characters of Gladim and Barago, and Gable understood this through instinct. Therefore, I will never lose. You're full of shit. Anyway, your defeat is a foregone conclusion. You should be glad that you can die before you see the future hell, so thank me for my mercy. Barago's attacks are getting sharper by the second. Gable, on the other hand, unloads the strike cautiously. Is this talking about the change in you soldiers? Can you tell me what you've done? As Gable pointed this out, Barago's movement slowed. Then, with a flicker, stared at Gable. Hey, did you notice? That's for sure. After all, we have a very good commander. Even so, it's too late. The order has been given. All you can do is wait to die in despair. Barago pointed to the evidence. It was Gosseline who had fully recovered. It is indeed a very good restorative power. As a strong man, it is just that this level of ability is not taken for granted.
Gable found out that Gosseline was okay.
But it's not worth the surprise. However, Barago smiled fearlessly. Nope. It's not Gosseline, it's her surroundings. At this moment, a fierce cold ran up Gable's back. There were corpses of Imperial soldiers all over the place. To point out the death of a companion to the enemy in a heroic manner is to be unable to guess the intentions of Barago. However, before that. Speaking of which, when did this group die? The number of enemies was too large to be noticed, but the number of deaths was also too abnormal. On closer inspection, more and more of the enemy broke away from the air battle lines and landed. While observing their whereabouts, some of them were found to have vomited blood and died on the spot. What? Did you find it? I don't think it's because I died. That's right, Lord Gladim makes a decision. We are facing a great trial now. After saying that, Virago roared with laughter. With a maniacal laughter that spread throughout the battlefield, the people who heard it were scared to death. Gable looked at him like this and felt horror as well. It was an epiphany. Something terrible is about to happen. The Beast King Gladim gave a command. That's the most important classified order. All hands on deck. As reported by Samuel, our Emperor is in crisis. Moreover, the enemy has vilely summoned the evil demons. The battle power of the demons is still unknown, and presumably, that battle power is beyond your means. If this goes on, there will be serious damage, so this lord is going to use the last resort to counter it. Give your courage and loyalty, and unleash the killer weapon that I have given you, so that you may gain the power to defeat even the demons. After conveying the orders to the 3 generals, the orders were also given to the soldiers. As a fortified killer, the tablets were distributed to individual soldiers. However, the pill could not be taken without the order of Army Chief Gladim. And that restriction was lifted by Gladim's secret summons. With success comes great power. And if it goes well, there will be some side effects at best. If you're going to hate me, you might as well hate yourself for not being able to adapt. Now that's it, Gladim really means it. Downright self-centered, this is the man named Gladim. Gladim calmly ordered the soldiers of his own army to go to hell. As cold and ruthless as his judgment was, it was also true that just going on like this, there was a good chance that he would be ravaged by the demons. It can also be said that it is reasonable to judge a person as a person who has died in exchange for power. The soldiers quickly carried out their orders. It is precisely because one knows nothing about the content that one can execute orders without hesitation. In other words, the soldiers voluntarily unleashed the forbidden special caste and ability, Demon-Beast Fusion. The effects of the abilities slowly eroded the Warcraft Legion soldiers' bodies. Because both were in the middle of a battle, the change in the soldiers was ignored at first. However, the results of the changes also became apparent over time. The ground was strewn with bodies. The bodies Gable saw were them. There were also many who stormed into the enemy lines. The Kuranai and the Flying Dragons and the heavenly flying congregation of the Beast King's order were in a bitter battle. In the battlefield, there are also those who wonder about their changes. These men are the true warriors that Gladim pursues. There were 10,000 dead. 5,500 fully demonized people. 5,000 people who went berserk after the demonization. 5,000 who kept human form, partially bestialized, and went berserk away. 4,000 beast demon warriors who had housed the beast power. And 400 who awakened to become Chimera Knights. The odds of success or failure are fixed, and the results are more or less a fluke than expected. Because the experimental parameters were so few, it's no surprise that the results were even more disastrous. Judging from the results, the number of Demon Beast Legion, which originally had 30,000 people, had been drastically reduced. However, the Legion has grown in strength by leaps and bounds. The mob will be crushed on the spot. Although there is still value in using it as bait, it cannot be restored if it becomes that way. So Gladim also did not spare, and did well to shed their consciousness. Of the 20,000 remaining, roughly half still maintain a rational fight. This information was a little more than Gladim had expected. Half of them were unable to recover as adults, but the moment is also an important battleground. Gladim should also be happy with the result. What's more, 400 Chimera Knights were born. That way, neither opponent will lose. Thinking so, Gladim nodded in satisfaction. However, it's not time to let out a sigh of relief. It took some time to achieve this result, and the next step was the integration of these battle forces. Despite Gladim's desire to command the formation himself, it was a pity that there was now carrion in the way. In that case, only 3 generals could be relied upon. Virago the Blue Dragon, fighting Gable. Vermilion Sparrow, Najim, is also fighting with Frey. That leaves Black Tortoise Gosseline. Gosseline, get the troops together. Kahir Hai. The results are better than we thought. It's a joy to behold. Then please. The instructions were given through a simple chanting. The current need is to regroup before the 10,000 marching soldiers run out.
Thankfully, Gosseline was okay, and Gladim was relieved for the moment.
Even the self-centered Gladim relies on the people with whom he identifies. Well, I'm a good match for you, aren't I? Of course. I'm a military leader, not like a beast somewhere. Sacrificing your own men and calling yourself a military commander? No more jokes. Stupid, this is war. It's precisely because you can't even judge this that you can't. It's pathetic enough to hear that you've been kicked off the throne by a newly installed demon king, following the minions of the incompetent. Shut up. Carrion slashed at Gladim in exasperation, his anxiety evident in the attack. Incredibly, Gladim became stronger than expected. Oi, the attack is so weak, it's as slow as it stopped. Without forgetting to sneer, Gladim came around behind Carrion, who was equipped with a huge claw on his right hand. The tiger claws that glittered with silvery glory, the white tiger claws. The white tiger claw was also the alias of the three Beastketeer Sufia, and this claw, which possessed the name White Tiger, was exactly the mythical grade armament given by the Emperor, which Gladim had transformed into his own exclusive weapon, mythical equipment that can be decapitated no matter what the opponent is. It can also slaughter spiritual beings, and with Gladim's godlike pace, the effect is remarkable. With hammered pace, Gladim plays with Carrion. Even though Carrion was dressed in legendary-level equipment, he was like scrap metal in front of White Tiger Claw. What's wrong? What's wrong? I thought you were going to kill me, but it was just talk. Annoying. Geez, I thought I'd be able to take you out more easily, the math went wrong. Carrion had also become stronger through Milim's cultivation so that he was not fatally wounded and was able to continue fighting. Even more surprised about this was Gladim. The battle power gap was directly tied to weapon performance, and Gladim had originally thought he could end the battle more quickly. It is also evident from this that both men are kindred spirits. The strength is similar, the potential is higher for Carrion, and the weapon is favorable for Gladim. Overall, it's still Gladim who has the advantage. Gladim is also aware of this, keeping his guard up and charging at Carrion. It was at this point that something unexpected happened to Gladim. What? The power is coming? This is the precursor to evolution, the beginning of evolution into a demon lord. But, awakening at this time is like stepping into death's door for Gladim. What, this sleepiness is? Gladim wobbled on his feet, and Carrion could not have misplaced this break, out of the crisis repositioning posture. What's the matter, tired of chopping? Carrion observes while stirring up Gladim. What happened? This play, is it foul, or auspicious? Whoever it was could tell that Gladim's power was beginning to swell. The magicules gathered, overflowing with a huge magical aura. Gladim himself, however, was a lycanthropic figure who couldn't even stand up, staggering. What's going on? Is this supposed to be, like, an awakening? What he had heard recently came to mind in Carrion's mind. The ritual of evolution was performed at a celebration held at Raimoru. According to reports, some subordinates fell into an irresistible slumber and withdrew at that time. Does it take sleep to become a true demon lord? If so, then is this guy in the midst of an awakening moment? Carrion is no fool, but neither is he observant. But Carrion, facing a life crisis, thinks calmly and plays with excellent insight. According to Frey's speculation, evolution requires souls. Yes, the conditions are met. All it takes to evolve into a true demon lord is abhorrent souls. Of course, not all evolution requires this, and enduring the hateful feelings of those who have been killed by oneself is one of the necessary trials of awakening. Gladim became defenseless in a situation as critical as in battle. This, too, is karma. Those minions who had relied on Gladim must have felt betrayed. These souls are filled with abomination and reach out to the source of that abomination, Gladim. Nor was Carrion right to see through everything, only to judge that now was both the greatest crisis and the best opportunity. God help me, too. Wait. Give me a minute. You've lived as long as you want, haven't you? Now it's time for you to pay back. Calm down and think about it. Only the one who had defeated the state of perfection, me, could be called the strongest. You don't want a showdown in such an unkind way either. Gladim beat his heart out. The time is right for us to be killed, but this is the time when we can't help but sleep. As things were completely beyond expectation, no countermeasures could be expected for a moment. Sweeping a circle of the minions that depended on it, Barago and Najim were in the middle of a heated battle. Gosseline was busy integrating the Chimera Knights, and couldn't spare a hand to cover Gladim now due to the onslaught of Raimuru's army. At least, now, this moment, no one can come back to save Gladim. Gladim's knees momentarily braced against the ground. How can that be, damn it? It's been so hard to get this far, one step away from getting the most power. It is true that he feels the power that is overflowing within him, but the more powerful it is, the more powerful the incoming sleepiness will be unable to resist. As soon as the awakening was achieved, even Veilgrind was not in question. Gladim was so convinced, but the reality was harsh. There was no reason why Gladim could endure the trials that even Raimuru could not resist. Gladim's face, with the distorted by unwilling tears, one could not see the original face. You're kidding? You gotta be kidding me, motherfucker. Gladim tore into a slumber after a final shout. Those who cannot cross the trial, there is only death. Wouldn't it be nice to die in your sleep? So, goodbye. Beast particles roar. Carrion is not a man who would pity his enemies at a time like this. Carrion, who was the most confident when he was the Demon Lord, is now the general in charge of an army. Being in the position of reinforcements, it stands to reason that victory is a higher priority than one's own honor. The man, true to his ambition and one step away from achieving greater heights, was beaten down by Carrion. Not anticipating the defeat of the army chief, the three remaining generals panicked. The three will be companions who are intoxicated with Gladim, chasing the same dream. Their roars and laments were quite intense and even affected the battle. The initial action was Barago. No longer tangled with Gable, he turned back and rushed to Gladim's side. Lord Gladim. All of Gladim's head below was blasted away by the demon beast particle roar. Only the head with a remorseful expression was left, and in that state it was no longer possible to come back from the dead. Ah, what a cruel thing to do. Our long-cherished wish was still a little bit away from being fulfilled. Chasing the lamenting Barago, Gable also rushed over. Without a care in the world, he stabbed the Lizardman clan's secret treasure, the Water Vortex Spear, at Barago. Gable, his eyes still focused on Barago, said, "Sir Carrion, a wonderful victory. I admire the majesty of the Lion King." To Carrion, who had crushed the enemy general, Gable's words of praise were genuine. The power of Gladim, who holds mythical equipment, surpasses that of Gable even though he is a demon lord. Despite the coincidence and good fortune, praise for the Carrion who knocked him out is also par for the course. However, the complimented Carrion's face did not look good. Oi, it can't be. Seemingly flawless to answer, Gable was thinking about something. What's wrong? Isn't it physically uncomfortable? Faced with Gable's questioning, Carrion reluctantly threw his gaze over. Then the appalling truth was told. I'm sorry. Are you hurt? No, it's the awakening. It seems that the souls, which were originally owned by Gladim, are coming towards me. To fall defenseless at a time like this, I can't laugh at Gladim anymore. What? Carrion couldn't help but laugh at himself. Sensing the situation, Gable produced a shake. "I'm sorry, I'm going to sleep here. Protect me if you have the strength left." "Of course. Rest in peace." To reassure Carrion, Gable laughed. Carrion returned a smile, then collapsed back onto his back, and with a final word of hopefully waking up well, fell asleep. The seemingly daring and fearless Carrion couldn't resist the sleepiness of evolution either. Barago was annoyed by this. If the situation changed slightly, it would be time to switch sides with Gable. Relatively speaking, it should also be Gladim, not Carrion, who falls into the sleep of evolution. "Oh, I'll never forgive you. I'll never agree with you if you've done nothing to make a profit." Barago excitedly shot his abhorrent gaze at Gable and Carrion. In his hands he held the relics of the radiant Gladim. The white tiger claw is a mythical weapon that, when the owner is identified, becomes a realistic weapon with the owner's consciousness. "White tiger claw, lend me your strength. Let me avenge Lord Gladim's death." As if echoing Barago's voice, the white tiger claws radiated an even more intense glow. The light retracted and turned into a spear. "Ooh, identify with me as your master," Barago said happily. In his hand was the blue dragon spear, which had transformed from the white tiger claw. "You're called Gable, right? I'm going to kill you and kill the thief who slept there." "Bullshit. I have made a pact between men that I will never let you interfere with the sleeping Sir Carrion," Gable yelled back. Then, the two males fought again. While fighting at high speed in the airborne battle, Frey also grasped the situation in every corner of the ground through her unique skill Sky Sphere Eye. Everything within the specific range coordinates of this double clairvoyant lock can be seen at a glance. So that's what evolution is all about. Frey had a clear mind and was able to understand what was going on the ground. Fighting Najim on the one hand, Frey simultaneously unraveled the correct answer. How? Lord Gladim was. Luck is also part of strength, it's true. You bastard. How dare you fool Lord Gladim when you can't do anything about me? You say that, I'm just stating the facts, not trying to fool him. Besides, I'm not helpless, I just haven't struck yet. I hope you're not mistaken. Even though Frey seldom did it herself, her strength as an old demon lord was not a pose. Although Najim the Vermilion Sparrow has a much higher amount of mana than herself, she is also able to move around with speed and skill. He's a fugitive. He's a liar. You're not making a big deal out of it. We'll decide after the fight. Quarrels don't lose out to Najim. There are people in the world who are good at making others feel bad about themselves. Frey was exactly this type of person, and even the demon Lord Milim couldn't lift her head in front of Frey. And Frey wasn't just running away. Observe your opponent while looking for their weaknesses. Can't win on strength. The speed on Frey had the advantage, but the opponent's staying power was even better. This will only lead to a gradual decline, but there are always opportunities to win in unexpected places, aren't you, anxious? Huh? What are you? I can finally see the souls, too. Thanks to these eyes, it's convenient to be able to see. Frey snickered. Because she sensed that the performance of the unique skill Celestial Sphere I had increased, the battle had become a situation in her favor. And, she was sure that the information now obtained would be the key to victory. What did you say you could see? Najim said in disgust, and then the claws finally caught Frey's wrists. A cold laugh followed. The Winged Clan's claws have the effect of magic blocking, which conceal the ability of an opponent who is caught. Ah ha 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 ha. What a fool you are. Just talking and accidentally getting caught by me, right? Najim seemed convinced of her victory, and his tone became clearer, and this change of attitude was a good indication that Najim was indeed in a hurry just now. Despite the crisis in which Frey was in, she remained calm. The observation continued, blandly acknowledging those instances. Take it. Magic electric shockwave. What followed seemed to be a one-sided ravage as Najim began the onslaught. Frey's clothes were cracking from the shockwave, but her expression was not the slightest bitter, and she was still watching Najim as if she was indifferent. Najim didn't feel right about the way Frey looked, but she thought it was just a bluff. Despite the reluctance to agree, the identical twin, Frey, was more intelligent. Comparing combat power alone is that Najim is stronger, but opponents who can play tricks are tough. This is meant to trick me into taking the opportunity to get away from the claws, right? Nope, the woman must have been waiting for a split second to break and attempt a reversal. Deciding that it was only right to continue the attack, Najim tortured Frey even more intensely. However, Frey remained unchanged. Not even close, huh? Frey just muttered, and Najim couldn't ignore the words. So one can't help but ask rhetorically, what's so close? You're starting to wake up, aren't you? Compared to when the battle first started, the amount of mana was gradually increasing. It seems like you'll sleep just like Gladim did. I'll just have to wait for the opportunity. Frey spoke up, revealing a devilish smile. Najim was blue in the face. She herself was more or less self-conscious that symptoms of awakening did appear in her body. And that's exactly why Najim was anxious. Since the time Frey saw through that, Najim had basically been played for mercy by Frey. So what? I'll just kill you right now and hide somewhere safe. While what Frey said was merely validating the truth, Najim fell even more wolfishly. Before the sleep of evolution arrives, Frey must be killed off. Najim so concluded, coming out even more fiercely to increase the power of the attack with full force. And that's what Frey is all about. Najim has no way of finding out. Magic shockwave. It was already unknown how many times it was the first attack. The intense electric shock scorched Frey. However, Frey didn't even have any burns on her body. At most she was just leaning back from the shockwave and was actually unharmed. Too weird. Why is this guy, who can do nothing, like this? When it is too late to perceive this. It's incredible. However, from your reaction, I am also convinced that as a mother of a former queen, I want you to be happy away from racial strife. What did you say? If the queen's secret is known, she will only be killed. So without telling you anything, I banished you. You've got to be kidding me. Can a fledgling live when it's abandoned at birth? That was a clear attempt to kill me. Najim shouted impassionedly. However, Frey calmly contradicted her. But you survived. This fact proves that someone was quietly taking care of you. Mother is also naive. What the? This is the point that Frey points out, and the one that Najim has long held in question. It's amazing how one can survive the early childhood years before oneself is born. So she gave herself the excuse that because she was a mutant, she probably survived by instinct. However, hearing what Frey had said, the doubts that had come to mind in the first place came to mind, but Najim, overcome with hatred, can't change her mind now. A bluff. Yeah, I see. You're trying to trick me, so wait for a reversal. It would have been nice to beg for mercy, but as an original demon lord, you can't allow yourself to end up like that, right? Najim was convinced that it was the desperate Frey playing up the strategy. That makes all the sense. Najim, who forcefully justified herself, further increased the power of the electric shock in order to firm herself up inside and not fall for the deception. Go to hell. Maximum magic electric shockwave. The full force of the purple lightning struck through Frey. And that's exactly the moment that Frey was waiting for. It's pathetic. I let you get away, and you came back here to die. Huh? There can only be one queen. In order to get the throne, I killed Lord Mother. Of course, if you're not abandoned, you'll have to kill each other with me. Then I could have killed you. As a rare combat type, Najim was absolutely confident in her fighting abilities, although the flight speed is not as fast as Frey's, other than that it is better than Frey's. Even the battle was not lost, and now it was, and victory was near. All Najim wanted to do was laugh at Frey, and the last words before she died didn't even count as hard words. But hearing Frey's next words, her face changed. Winged queens are in need of all sorts of abilities. And it is those who are born with these abilities that will be recognized as the next queen. You're also unlucky to be born as the other half of my twin. You've been talking smugly since just now. Then I'll get right to the point. For an attack of the same race, the queen is going to be at an absolute advantage. In other words, harpy attacks won't work against me. Stop lying. How can something so ridiculous be? If that was the case, the thought flashed through Najim's mind for a moment, but she vetoed it in a flash. If that's true, it would be a contradiction to killing the former queen. You're trying to make up a story to get me into a mess, so make up a convincing story. It's sad that you can't believe me, but it's true. Incidentally, the old and new queens didn't have to fight each other. Originally, it was the sisters with the same ability who should have won the battle, and the one who could take the opponent's ability for himself or herself would be the queen. At the same time, it is also true that it will become a demon lord species. What the? Because you were born with a flaw, it was up to me to kill your mother. And inexcusably, you trampled on your mother's desire to keep you alive. I don't know if you're a sister, but I wish you could hide in some corner and live. You're kidding. Think you've won? As your sister, I also have the ability to fight outside of the Harpy clan. Just use that power. It's too late, enough energy has been saved. I don't want to put you in pain. I'll kill you. What? By this time, Najim finally sensed that Frey's wings were dyed purple and scattered with gold powder, and the beautiful pure white wings were discolored due to the purple electricity. Najim's mind grew fearful as she realized what this meant, and her body stiffened. The shockwaves that I released, all piled up. And how powerful is it? Najim panicked and tried to escape, but the claws that held Frey's wrists couldn't be pulled out for a moment, and Frey's slender hands also hit Najim's wrists. Perhaps the outcome would have been different if Najim had awakened before she met Frey. But unfortunately, that too is just a hypothetical. Farewell, sister. Reflexes. Wait? Frey didn't hesitate. Kinship was shed long ago when she became queen. The accumulated purple electricity was released in one breath. This is the ability that Frey has acquired, the unique skill of the two-knocker, which allows Frey to return the attacks she takes to her opponent. It was actually a bad skill to use, since she was also wounded, but this time it was an attack from the same clan, and the strong enemy, who should have been invincible, became a one-trick pony for Frey. Najim ate the accumulated electric shock head-on, burned to black in an instant, and died on the spot. It doesn't matter if it's an older sister or a younger sister, it's mother's naivete that's so troublesome. Still, one thing is quite enviable, sister. At least, you were really loved by your mother. Towards the fallen Najim, Frey bid farewell. But Najim had lost hearing of Frey's goodbye. The winged sisters failed to understand each other, and their second encounter came to an end. It would be nice if that was the end of it. What the? The soul of Najim is coming towards me. A sudden sharp drowsiness assaulted Frey. Is this, then, the sleep of evolution? So, with Najim gone, the soul's remorse has been unleashed on me. It wasn't that Frey didn't want to awaken as a true demon lord, but there was also timing and occasion to consider. Looking at Carrion's stupidity, I wanted to wait for him to wake up and taunt him, but Frey could only laugh bitterly in her heart. Don't joke with me. But complaining doesn't help. Lucretia, Clee. Guard me to the end. Protect Carrion, too, by the way, as you wish, Lady Frey. Will do as you command. The twins responded immediately. Upon seeing the twins, Frey flew to Carrion's side. It's better for two people to get together for protection than separate. Also, with the three Beastketeers Sufia guarding Carrion, working with the two wings will increase the chances of survival. Frey thought so. That said, that's really enough. It's obviously reinforcements, now it's all a burden. I didn't think I'd behave like this. Frey was embarrassed with shame inside. The only thing that was unexpected about Frey. Also unsure if she would be able to wake up, Frey reluctantly fell asleep. Gable and Barago put on a death match. And the one that decided where the battle was going was the blue dragon's spear that Barago was holding. Gable didn't want to admit to being swayed by the difference in weapons, but in fact, even Gable's proud dragon-scale armorization couldn't completely defend against the blue dragon spear's sudden stab. He can't be underestimated for hurting me. Kek. That's my line. I was going to kill you with one blow, but it's going to be tougher than I thought. Both men were covered in wounds, but neither stopped attacking, and neither cared that the wounds were growing. It's surprising that you can evenly compete with the awakened me. But I can't lose. Ha! If it's Lord Gladim, even without awakening, he's better than you. If I can awaken, I won't have to fight against you. Ridiculous. Stronger than me, there are plenty of people amongst Lord Rymuru's men. You're not bad, but in the eyes of Ultima and the girls, you're just a fish. This statement was tantamount to saying that he was also a miscellaneous fish, but Gable did not notice it. Though lacking in roots, Gable himself took this statement extremely seriously. Even though Gable was embroiled in a bitter battle, he didn't forget to observe the battle situation. In order not to implicate the sleeping carrion, Gable deliberately reveals the breach to induce Barago's actions. After all, it was not in vain, and the battlefield was successfully moved little by little. Miss Sophia has also rushed to cover, and carrion should be fine. And when you get here, you don't have to worry about getting involved. Gable was also doing some thinking in the fight. As Gable circled, Frey also defeated one of the three generals. No way. Even Najim has lost. After the Generalissimo, the woman who had identified herself as an adjutant also died. The much battered Barago became enraged. Absolutely unforgivable. I'm going to use this spear to avenge my fellow men. Barago exclaimed. Next, it's the real Barago. A true Chimera Knight is a warrior who has taken the inherent ability of the Beastman race bestiality for himself. You know what? If you can bear the special ability of demon-beast fusion, you can become a being who can unite the power of man and beast, and this is our ultimate warrior. After Barago finished speaking, his body began to change. Keeping a human face, the features of a dragon gradually emerged. Military uniforms also break with the expansion of the body. Barago shifted, taking on a form that approximated that of a dragon turned draconian. It feels so good. The true power of liberation is so high. Barago is also trying to take on this form for the first time. Whether or not the transformation would be successful, he was only thinking about it quietly, and hadn't told anyone about the transformation. But now, the revered Gladim is dead, unshackled from Barago's heart. Coupled with the defeat of fellow Najim, there was no longer any reason to hesitate. Come here, you guys. Barago called out, storming the minions. The miserable soldiers without self-consciousness, as depraved as magical beasts, obeyed the orders of the overwhelmingly strong and instinctively recognized Barago as the strong one. It wasn't just the demonized people, it was the partially demonized people. The assembled soldiers were easily gnawed at by Barago. Like a pulse pounding and pounding, the energy flowed into Barago's body. The gnawed-upon soldier became as dry as a corpse and died on the spot. What have you done? Aren't they your men? And you? I hope they're thankful to be so fortunate as to be able to die in my service. So selfish? Don't think that I will let you off the hook for such inhumane practices. Gable sprinted forward. Instinct sounded the alarm that it would be dangerous to leave it alone. Judging by the situation, the capacity value has become larger after the transformation, and the minions are now used as energy supplies. Barago now has the same amount of mana as Gable. Now that he was about to become what could be called an artificially awakened demon king, there was no reason why Gable should be anxious. Anxiety, however, invites the worst results. Dumbass. On the battlefield, those who lose their common sense can only die. Do you think I would indulge in eating and fall off the wagon? Barago's action has two implications. 1. The power is increased to replenish the missing energy, and then there's the one that sends Gable into anxiety. Barago's purpose accomplished, Gable falls into the trap and rushes to his death. What? By the time he noticed it, it was too late. Barago deftly maneuvered the blue dragon spear with his feet, the tip of which pierced the abdomen of the rushing Gable. The magic steel chest armor failed to cover the abdomen. Gable's dragon scale armorization was also unable to defend against the counterattack that came from an unexpected dead corner. Gah, gah. Gable had a hole cut in his abdomen and spat out blood. Seeing this, Barago laughed aloud. Kek. You become my bait food, too. Feel the glory. Gable was in desperate straits, but fate would not allow it to happen. Confirmed. The unique skill tuner effect has been launched. Personal name, Gable's change of fate, successful avoidance of death. This is the voice of the world. The power of the unique skill tuner, which Gable himself had forgotten, changed Gable's fate in this moment. This was originally a unique skill acquired by Gable during the transformation of Demon Lord Rimuru, but it was unclear what effect it had, only that it could increase or decrease his attack power. It gets stronger when you get carried away, and weaker when you are weak and inferior. In a sense very suitable for Gable's powers, but not exactly a good skill to use. With that feeling, Gable's life was saved by the unique skills of a bunch of mysteries. Kuhu. What? I was really penetrated in the abdomen just now. Though touchy-feely, Gable the man didn't care about the details. Well, that's it. Gable gave up thinking and repositioned himself against Barago. How can that be? What just happened? Barago can't just take it like that. Against an opponent as strong as Gable, it was hard to let his opponent fall into the trap, and finally he was able to defeat him. It's a win-win situation to continue the chase, and it's only natural that it's unacceptable. Don't be ridiculous, asshole. Then next time it'll go right through your heart. After absorbing the magic essence, the strength had increased drastically, and there was no longer any need to play tricks. Defeating Gable was like a slap in the face. Thinking so, Barago gripped the blue dragon spear in both hands. The two males once again faced each other in four eyes, ready to strike. At a disadvantage was Gable. It was lucky to pick up a life, but there wouldn't be a second one. He didn't know that it takes a long time for the unique skill change of fate to start again after the first time. It doesn't matter how good or how overjoyed you are, but one use a day is the limit. So Gable has no other trump card. Also, the physical exertion was severe as the battles continued one after the other. Having just come back from the brink of death, it was logical that rest was needed now. Even though Gable was not in good shape, he was not weak and smiled brightly. Ho 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 ho. Your moves are pretty good, but I'm not losing to you either. After all, Master is very good. Don't think you can beat me that easily. In order to be ready to respond to Barago's outbursts, Gable concentrated his full attention. But by this time, the fate was set. It was not the influence of Gable's unique skills, but the birth of the seal in Rimuru's mind. Originally, Gable had no choice but to struggle as hard as he could with his last strength, when the heavenly voice descended. Do you want power? So there you go. Please agree to a transformation of your unique skills. Dash. Gable didn't ask rhetorically what that meant. The sound was wistful, warm, and just hearing it calmed one down. So without the slightest hesitation, Gable silently read his agreement. The effect is dramatic. You made the right choice. I'll give you new powers by offering your unique skill, the tuner, as a sacrifice. As the sound faded, Gable awakened a new power. Research has given King of the Mind, a skill given by the seal that has 5 effects: thinking acceleration, fate change, unexpected operation, space operation, multiple barriers. Accelerated thinking can increase the speed of perception up to 1,000,000 times. Fate Change is the upper-level version of the unique skill Tuner's Fate Change and can now be manipulated by Gable's self-awareness, but it is still used once a day at most. This is also the top version of the unpredictable effect of Tuner. Whereas before it was only possible to unconsciously raise the attack, now it could be launched by his own will. One thing that remains constant, however, is that it still depends on the mood. If emotions are high, one can boost their attack. Space manipulation is an ability that the subordinate, led by Benimaru, can use. The main purpose is to transfer space, so that as long as space is not interfered with, you can freely move to the place you have been once. There's even a handy ability to seal the enemy's back path to escape by interfering with space. Multiple barriers is a defensive technique that Rimuru excels at. By combining the various effects of barriers, all attacks can be countered. By way of borrowing Rimuru's power, Gable can also use the multiple barriers. Skill effects that hadn't been noticed so far were now correctly understood by Gable. Seal instructed Gable in a consciousness delayed to 1,000,000 times over. Gable was deeply moved. Couldn't help but get it off his chest. That's strong, that's strong. I can't lose any more. Just finished the upgrade and he immediately got carried away, but it was the right thing to do. Gable's laughter swept the heavy atmosphere, and the strength grew in equal proportion to it. What's the matter with you? Suddenly the strength has increased. What on earth was done? Ho 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 ho. Sorry, but I have a great master. As long as I have that lord guarding me, I can't lose. Although it was still possible to lose depending on the situation, Gable spoke out loud and proud. At the same time, the power within Gable was overflowing. In this way, it is already overwhelming. Come on, get killed. How dare you? Let your flesh remember my power well. The two masters of the awakening demon lord will fight head to head with all their might. In a split-second offensive and defensive battle, the man who took the opponent was Gable. Gable used the water vortex sphere to deftly block the blue dragon spear that was stabbing over with full force. Barago thus revealed a huge gaping hole, and before he had time to regroup his posture, a large hole was opened in his chest by Gable's sudden stab. Gah! Goo! It's not over yet, with my ability to recover, just this injury. Yes, Barago had inherited the high recovery power unique to orcs, and coupled with the energy replenished by absorbing his minions, a certain amount of injuries could be instantly healed. Barago tries to hang on to the recovery this time too, however, doesn't manage it. Gable himself found it quite unbelievable that Change of Fate and unforeseen operation had been launched without permission, and the two had combined to seize Barago's ability to recover. Fate Change can only be used once a day, but only for the same object. That is, it can be used against enemies as well. This was confirmed through this battle. As Barago himself said, on the battlefield, the man who loses his ordinary mind has only one way to die. Wow, more power than I thought. Thus, Gable was given new abilities and was victorious at the same time. On the other hand, the last three, Black Totus Gosseline, also encountered an unexpectedly strong opponent. Due to the defeat of Army Chief Gladim, the Warcraft Legion was in chaos. Before they had a chance to integrate their troops, the demon hordes fell from the sky. It was a large army, though, and not a large number. It's only about 500, but the quality can be described as terrifying. The black numbers, the direct demon-fighting group of the demon lord Rimuru. Despite the fact that the Chimera Knight's amount of mana was close to twice that of a demon, unexpectedly, they were unable to gain the upper hand in the battle. The demons are just that strong. Faced with the unsatisfactory state of affairs, Gosseline couldn't suppress her anger. In such a state, the time of destiny comes. That is, what? A silhouette emerged from the distance of Gosseline's vision. Somehow, the instinct to feel strongly about this sense of disconnection sounded the alarm. Gosseline took her eyes off the battlefield, intending to see the true identity of the figure's shadow. Gosseline's actions were the right ones. If the silhouette was ignored, Gosseline would never know what was going on until she died. That being said, it's probably happier to die knowing nothing. The place where the figure emerged was the site of the wreckage of the Floor Guardian Colossus statue. Just as Gosseline was watching what was happening, the silhouette stood up. It was a beautiful man with dark hair and waist and a half-naked upper body. The complexion is dark brown with a slight sheen. It was as if it was metal. No, the remains of the Floor Guardian Colossus statue fused under the man's waist. In front of Gosseline's eyes, the wreckage dissolved and changed shape. After that, the man's lower body was finished. What? I'm naked. It's a shame. The tone that didn't match the handsome appearance was very similar to the man Gosseline had just fought. Are you, Mr. Ghidorah? The man laughed at Gosseline's question. Of course it's this old man. Or do you think you've won? I would never approve of that. Yes, the mysterious all-naked man is Ghidorah-sensei. What did you say? Didn't you die in a self-exploding spell? The principle of that magic is to burn life, so why are you still alive? Gosseline shouted aloud. Her own understanding couldn't keep up, and listening to Ghidorah's answer got her more confused. It wasn't good to be carried along by Ghidorah's rhythm like this, and Gosseline tried to change the course of the topic. Yeah, come to think of it. This old man exploded with his life sublimation. You think that's gonna kill me? However, how could a man like me commit suicide? Until the battle is over, don't be relieved to think you've won. Ghidorah was long-winded while creating clothes with magic. It's still unsexy, but it's better than being completely naked. Cut the crap and answer my question. Gosseline wanted to take out Ghidorah regardless. However, the one who is obviously completely dead has come back to life and has to become cautious. Also not sure if Ghidorah will answer honestly, so Gosseline intended that no matter what Ghidorah's answer was, the next attack would be to the fullest. It was the old man, after all, who must have used some clever trick or prepared a living sacrifice for death. It's a lot of work to make a servant sway. But servants will crush these boring tricks with brute force. The flesh of Gosseline's magic steel had super weight on the opposite side of the surface. Therefore, just by crashing through with a certain speed alone, it can also exert considerable power. In addition, the high-frequency thousand-hand chop with the tentacles of the whole body can be turned into a cannonball that turns everything it touches into powder. Gosseline's feet were straining. Use yourself as a cannonball and gain propulsion by kicking the ground. It's another of Gosseline's killer moves. Gosseline aimed at Ghidorah. And Ghidorah didn't notice that she was about to launch an attack and honestly began to explain. Well, I've been reincarnated. He had prepared beforehand a mystical arcana that he had developed himself, reincarnation. As long as you use this, you can keep your old memories and start a new life, although you have to say goodbye to the world for a while. It's a wonderful thing. So? It's just that the success rate is a little low and the relative returns are great. And I've been reincarnated several times, so success is guaranteed. In fact, the first time you try it, the success rate is the lowest. It wasn't due to poor skill on the part of Ghidorah that Adalman failed that time either. Ghidorah had prepared several spells beforehand that could be unleashed at any time. Razin can only prepare 1 or 2 spells at most, and Ghidorah can prepare more than 3. Transfer magic for escape and self-break magic for self-break. In case of death, he also has a handful of reincarnation magic. Despite Ghidorah being so thoughtful, though, something unexpected happened to him this time. By initiating reincarnation, the soul is separated from the body. A soul protected by magic is supposed to seek the next body to enter reincarnation, and at this point, another engagement was launched. Actually, Ghidorah volunteered to be Diablo's disciple, and Diablo has yet to give an answer. It was supposed to be a second rejection, but Diablo had his eye on Ghidorah. The two of them share a common interest in praising Rimuru magic. I don't hate men who are as interesting as you. When I recognize that you can truly serve Lord Rimuru, I'll take you in as a dependent. It was said at the banquet. Probably just a polite excuse to deny himself, but Ghidorah was still trying hard to get Diablo to approve of him. And at that point, Diablo had implanted Tempter. Thus, Ghidorah's reincarnation was rewritten. If one chooses to die for Rimuru, one can be reborn into the demon race. And the demon race is a race born with the ability to fight. It's only natural that Ghidorah, who possesses lifetime memories, becomes a demon race, and transmutes into a special individual. The problem is the flesh. Being a demon race of spiritual beings, staying in this world required a physical body. Originally Ghidorah could only possess someone, or contact Diablo and wait for the summoning. But as Seal was born in Rimuru's heart, the fate of Ghidorah was decided. If you want flesh, then you have it. It also gives you more power. Serve Lord Rimuru, so said the voice. For Ghidorah, too, it's a request. That's for sure, Ghidorah exclaimed. So the deal was formed and Ghidorah was successfully reborn. The new race that reincarnates is the metallic demon race. As if to prove himself a black dependent, he is entwined with black. Her hair, eyes, and complexion are mostly black. The shine through the metal is like an artifact. Having said that, this figure is not the original Ghidorah's appearance, but rather the youthful appearance of his life, his original life. It is a model reproduced from the image of memory and the soul, independent of race. Maybe it's because the new race, but he doesn't have the limitations of a demon race. Now that Ghidorah's amount of mana had been able to match that of a Chimera Knight, coupled with the knowledge and experience from his life, he had undoubtedly become stronger. Ghidorah also did feel himself being reborn, and savoring the emotion, he couldn't resist nagging at Gosseline. That is to say, you've become one of those metallic demons? A race I've never even heard of. That's what it's all about. A word of advice, I've gotten stronger. You have no chance of winning, surrender. I'll spare your life for the sake of my former colleagues. Idiot, that's all I have to say. The well-prepared Gosseline saw the time and burst forward towards Ghidorah. The astonishing speed turned Gosseline's body into an overweight cannonball. Ghidorah, who is still gossiping, probably can't defend against that. Gosseline rushed forward with such a thought, only to be dazed the next moment. Surprisingly, the body ignored the fact that Ghidorah was right in front of her eyes, but her consciousness drifted off course. Incredible, isn't it? Well, to put it simply, it's the manipulation of the magnetic field through magic that creates the strong magnetic barrier. When the magnetic field is energized, it can electromagnetically induce the object to move as it just did. The object this time refers to Gosseline herself. For Ghidorah, who had learned the science of the otherworldly, being able to do so much with magic was very much a thing. That is to say, Gosseline's killer weapon was easily cracked by Ghidorah. You're floating in midair, Ghidorah was holding a large book in his left hand, while his right hand was carefully turning the pages as if touching a treasure. How? Do you understand the power of this old man? Give up the fight and surrender. This only sounded like underestimation to Gosseline. Although Ghidorah didn't mean it, Gosseline's self-esteem as a strong person was hurt. So the option of surrender does not exist. All right. The only one who doesn't want to use this is my servant, she's come to her senses. Gosseline swallowed the pills. The special cast and ability of Demon-Beast fusion was activated. Just like Barago, Gosseline was about to gain great power. However, there was no reason for Ghidorah to wait dryly either. Really? Then you'll be a test subject for this new power of mine. Ghidorah looked happily at Gosseline. Those eyes, they were the eyes of a scientist looking at a small white mouse. The ultimate gift of the Book of Guidance. The book Ghidorah was holding in his left hand gave off an ominous glow. The book records that is Rimuru, that is, all the magic that Seal manages. Ghidorah was in a trance as he looked at the fine art pose recorded in the book about magic. Now he had chosen the magic that best suited him. The Little Black Prison. It was a martial art created by Benimaru, and Rimuru turned it into a skill. Magic is also a type of skill that is recorded in the Book of Magic. Although it was not as powerful as the martial arts used by Benimaru himself, the power was impeccable. Before Gosselin could understand what was happening, she was burnt beyond reproduction by the flames. "I want to show it off again, but I can't," Ghidorah muttered, trying to stroke his beard of pride. "But his chin is bare, not a hair on it." "Oh, no. It's a headache to look young too," Ghidorah muttered to himself, happily flipping through the Book of Magic guidance. As a result, the subordinates of the Warcraft Legion led by Gladim were all crushed. However, there are still dangers on the battlefield. One man, seeing Gladim's head rolling down to the ground in front of him, was giddy. "There's a delicious-looking bait that fell on the ground." That was the reason he was happy. The man who had picked up his head and nibbled on it without a care in the world was one of the 3 giants that Yuki had ordered to infiltrate the Legion of Warcraft, Vega. Gnawing away at Gladim's body, Vega's body was full of power. The body of that seemingly carnivorous beast swelled up another round. Gladim was originally a big man of 2 meters, and Vega had grown to be equal to Gladim, with bulging muscles that made the uniform blossom. "Humph, it's not bad, but it's not enough," Vega muttered to himself, and next came a succession of delicious bait. Najim, the vermilion bird, burned to a crisp, Barago, the green dragon, who died with a hole in his chest, and Gosselin, the metal remains of which are only the remains of her. Vega approached quietly, unnoticed by anyone, and nibbled on his prey quickly, one after another. Vega was able to eat humans because he was born with a special ability, the power of the unique skill. Plunderer. Vega was born in the royal capital of Ingratia. Unknown to Vega himself, his father was a magical inquisitor who eventually degenerated into a wizard. The father, having absorbed too much magic factor and unable to change back to human again, attacked the mother, from which Vega was born. So Vega was born a heretic, only 3 days after conceiving Vega in the mother's fetus and being born with a self. Having said that, he was just an irrational baby who didn't understand language, and everyone around him, including his mother, feared him as a monster. Not only was he not loved, he was nearly killed and had to hide. A dozen years passed after that, and Vega survived. Eating rats, scavenging scraps of leftovers, eating anything to survive. Finally, it also began to gnaw at the humans who were dying after the fight. Then he got it. Surprisingly, there is so much bait around yourself. Vega, who began eating humans, became a veritable monster. Of course, so an order was given to crush him, and it was Yuki who was responsible for carrying it out. At that time, Shizu Aizawa was already the instructor who took up the whip and assisted in the crusade, and Vega was successfully arrested. Originally, Vega was supposed to be executed, but Yuki felt it would be a shame for the force to just die. Unusual combat acumen, tough flesh. Also, it has the potential to grow, so it can be a good pawn to use if you exercise well. Yuki lied to Shizu and said that Vega had been disposed of. Then Vega was educated in the Empire through Damrada. Today, he has grown into a warrior of terror. Fortunately for Vega, the battle between the Upper Beast Knights and the Demon Beast Knights who served as reinforcements intensified. Thus, Vega was able to achieve his objective in a covert manner: the limbs of a strong beast, the body of hard magic steel, the power of a dragon that can bounce magic, the wings that can soar through the sky. Vega got them all in short order. Not only that, but he also picked up the mythical grade blue dragon spear. Though not yet recognized as a master, Vega didn't care. The injection of power made the blue dragon spear obey itself, fusing together forcibly. This was the effect of metal operation, the power that Gosselin possessed. Fused with mythical grade weapons, an unknown change came over Vega. The unusual armor covered the entire body, and a demon of unknown origin was born. At this point, it was time for Gable and the others to notice. What? Are there still such dangerous foes around? Gable exclaimed in surprise, and the minions could not help complaining. But Lord Gable, we are exhausted. Exactly. One battle after another, the supplies became scarce. What shall we do, Lord Gable? It's no wonder. In fact, the fatigue of the Flying Dragon congregation was at its limit. If the Upper Beast Knight had come any later, the battle line would have collapsed long ago. After all, the Beast King Warrior Corps and the Heavenly Flyers, who were supposed to be reliable reinforcements, were the first to leave the battle line. Ah, crap, Sophia muttered, that's how this started. Gable asked what was wrong, and Sophia returned with so sleepy. Hearing this, Gable also understood. It's about to begin. The indispensable evolutionary sleep of the Harvest Festival begins at the worst possible time. Carrion and Frey began to awaken, and it was a natural consequence. In the face of this irresistible physiological phenomenon, there is nothing to be done about complaining. So Gable and the rest fought alone and held the line. The other units are in the middle of an engagement according to their own judgment. But Gable and the others couldn't get out of there. Fatigue reaches its limit at times like these, and the situation becomes even more unpleasant. That's when Vega came, and Gable was blue in the face. Be assured, Sir Gable, that first I will speak to that man. That guy's name is Vega. He's Yuki's partner. How reliable. Gable was impressed with Ghidorah. Then please. Roger. The two, who had unknowingly become quite close, smiled and nodded at each other. Then Ghidorah walked towards Vega. Vega, long time no see. Is it Master Ghidorah? I hear you've gone rogue to the demon Lord Rimuru, so it's true. That's why myself and Yuki are also in a comrade-in-arms relationship, and it's a good thing I ran into you here. If I hadn't been there, you might have been considered an enemy. Yeah? Ghidorah walked over and struck up an intimate conversation, and Vega glanced around with little interest. Then immediately averted his gaze. Now Vega's eyes only see what is of interest. Ahead of Vega's line of sight were Carrion and Frey. All around them, too, lay what looked like pretty tasty bait. Vega kept his mouth watered, recalling the taste of the meat in a trance. I will mediate here, and you will assist us. Ghidorah slaps his hands on his shoulders as Vega sweeps past, and a relaxed, guarded Ghidorah eats the punch head-on. Now Vega's power had been strengthened to override the awakening demon lord. Compared to Ghidorah, there is more than twice the amount of mana. Although Ghidorah's physical defense of the metallic demon clan was also excellent, it was still no better than Vega, who had full-body magic steel and was armed with mythical levels. One blow left Ghidorah unconscious and lying motionless on the ground. Ghidorah, Ghidorah. The shouting Gable thought in his heart, Ghidorah is really unreliable. Ghidorah himself was full of confidence, but it couldn't be helped. The good hope collapsed and Gable looked even more disappointed. Also, Vega is more than capable. Vega wasn't about to hide either, watching them like he was licking Carrion and Frey. His purpose was clear. If he is not knocked out here, he will gain even more power. I don't even know if I can beat it now, and I'll be even more helpless by then. Gable will lose out and will have to fight now. I've always wanted to do something big, but one by one, I'd rather be spared. Gable introspected slightly inwardly. Gable made the realization and was about to move forward when he found someone in the way in front of him. Gable, let's leave this to our family. Whoa. Isn't that Lord Laplace? Why is he here? Well, because of being left behind by everyone, Laplace, who was about to say so, couldn't help but fall silent. Because it sucks. You don't have to say it. Of course he's here to save you. Whoa. That's so reassuring, Sir Laplace. Yeah. Since we're here, don't worry. Laplace forcefully closes the conversation. Then, turned to Vega, who was supposed to be a companion. So, Vega, why did you beat up old Master Ghidorah? Laplace asked to Vega with a flirtatious whirl. Vega just looked at him annoyedly and replied, "Huh? Needless to say. Because the old man is in my way." In the way? Yeah, none of the guys who get in the way of my eating can stay alive, so Laplace, you two honestly duck to the side. In that case, I'll let you off the hook for old time's sake. Laplace stopped spinning around. That's a joke. Have you forgotten where you stand? The tone of his voice was almost the same as a moment ago. However, the atmosphere is quite oppressive, and it is not too much to say that it is like two people. However, Vega didn't care. "Ha ha, you take a stand? You're the one who hasn't forgotten. You want to order me around. Didn't that Yuki kid lose to Rudra? I only take orders from those who are better than me." Vega laughed when he finished. His cackling could be heard in every corner of the battlefield. "I can't laugh. Your jokes aren't funny. So you're not kidding?" The shitty laughter came to a screeching halt. Laplace closes the distance in a flash and chokes Vega. "Don't underestimate people. Believe it or not, we'll kick your ass." Laplace lifted a Vega who was 2 rounds bigger than his body. Vega struggled with his hands. He is clearly not needing to breathe anymore, but is not used to coming over and is at a loss. That's when Laplace unleashes a knee strike on Vega. Vega with the neck choke has nowhere to go. After Laplace lets go, Vega crouches on the ground to adjust his breathing. Wait. I'm sorry I got carried away. I've calmed down. Forgive me." Laplace was about to land a shot to the side of Vega's head but looked at Vega pleading with himself and stopped. Then, coldly says, "We're not as gentle as the boss. I won't do it again." "I know." "Then follow our family honestly. Listen to me, if you do anything, we won't forgive you." Vega immediately nodded in agreement. "Understood. So, what's next?" "We're going to go to the president's place. As long as the chairman is saved, Tyr and Footman will be restored. Anyway, there are some reasons for this, so don't make a big deal out of it." "I got it." Vega nodded heavily. From this respectful attitude, Vega was now afraid of Laplace. Looking at Vega, Laplace sighed helplessly. "Shouldn't you be all right?" Chidora suddenly stood up, muttering with a worried face. "Old man." Vega couldn't help but posture. "Woohoo," said Chidora.
"You're okay."
Gable was surprised.
"I'm sure you're okay."
Laplace expected it and was not surprised. That's for sure. Although he lost consciousness for a moment, he had already taken every measure in case of emergency evacuation. "I was going to wait for his carelessness and then blow a big spell, so I faked my death." In the Book of Magic, which was given to us, there are also records of thinking acceleration and parallel computation. With this, even if you pass out, the backup self-discipline will help you out. "I see. I've been fooled too. Great old man, really. I didn't live that long in vain. More than that, the problem is Vega, right?" Laplace was going to muddle through, but Chidora didn't give up on pursuing it. "Me? Yeah. I can't trust you no matter what. Why?" Vega's attitude was as if he couldn't understand it at all. Laplace could only be convinced. Helplessly, he shrugged and replied cheerfully. "To be honest, my family can't be trusted either. But yes, this man is our companion. Our family understands that some people think it's better to take out Vega, but we want to trust him. Also, we can't decide without boss's permission. If he gets too much next time, our family will listen to you. Let's see if we can forgive him for once and give him a chance to trust and believe." Laplace agonized. What a headache. Vega's brain is so unintelligent. Be too faithful to your own desires to see the occasion. Not without merit, though disdainful of group action, but able to follow orders to a certain extent. Besides, it's a shame to be punished like that with all the power in the world. The fact that the occasional action that caused problems could also be more than tolerated was a real concern, One might as well pay more attention to that aspect themselves. Laplace thought so. This time too, luckily it was an attempted crime, but it almost caused a big problem. Even Laplace wouldn't have wrapped his arms around Vega if it came to them against Carrion, presumably punishing him on the spot. But honestly, this time, even if it was an attempted crime, it was quite dangerous. I don't have the right to decide, but I understand how you feel. It's not a stranger after all, as long as it doesn't cause trouble for Lord Rimuru. Ghidorah is also the one who knows Vega. It was not appropriate to speak at this point and to make concessions when taking a stand. We're worried about that too. Laplace was also disturbed and didn't get the whole thing out. Only Gable laughed out loud. Ho 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 ho. As a man, one should learn from one's failures. All right. I choose to believe in you too. You called Vega, listen well to Lord Laplace and try to be a good fighter. Gable said and patted Vega on the back. Despite the uneasiness of the heart, now is not the time to stop for worries. Laplace took Vega with him and set off at once. Is that all? Of course not. If Vega can grow up to earn it, even if he fails, Lord Laplace will take the blame. Accidentally pretty dark. Ho 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 ho. I don't get anything in return for my compliments. I'm not complimenting you, Ghidorah thought. But it would be too much trouble to explain, so he chose to remain silent. The atmosphere isn't as tense anymore, but there's still a fight going on. The two returned to reality, adjusted their moods, and returned to pro forma posture. That's when the good news came. Brother. Lord Moss sent word that Lord Rimuru has defeated Lord Veilgrind. The subordinates all entered the enemy airship and began a duel with the enemy's main force. We can't be left behind either. Sokka returned to the battlefield after a brief rest, loudly announcing the current situation, and the morale of Rimuru's army was boosted. In contrast, the Imperial army wavered. Regardless of the people who had stormed out of consciousness first, the main warriors of the Demon Beast Knights understood how bad their situation was. No more reinforcements can be expected with the loss of the commander. And with the enemy's reinforcements still growing, it was almost impossible to crush the enemy commander. If he continued to persist in crushing the old demon lords who lay defenseless on the battlefield, he would probably be surrounded and annihilated. If someone had commanded the army, maybe it would have been different. But now the chief is gone. It is not surprising that the situation should continue as it is, and that there are those who have run away. On the contrary, Rimuru's minions were overjoyed. Well. Have you beaten and defeated Lord Veilgrind? Unbelievable as it may be, but since it's Lord Rimuru, it's only natural. Win. All that's left to do is ravage. Of course, Gable and Ghidorah are no exception. Great. It's true, Lord Rimuru is different. Yeah. I also suddenly became stronger, having thought about this possibility. I'm sure that voice, just as Lord Diablo surmised, is closely related to Lord Rimuru. Did you just say something, Sir Ghidorah? No, nothing. More than that, let's hurry up and finish what we started. Unnecessary delving will only lead to destruction, which Ghidorah fully understands, and not to investigate in depth. There's another reason it's not good to implicate Gable in this. Gable nodded in agreement. Then returning his mind to the battlefield, Gable gave the assault order in the loudest voice of the day.